Welding can just be a side hustle or it could be a full-blown career. But what exactly is the fastest way to start making some cash? I struck my first arc back in like 2009. I've worked on pipelines to towering power plants. I've worked in plenty of fab shops, structural and pipe. I've done a lot of stuff on my own, whether it be commercial or residential, as well as doing some metal art. I would say in that 16-year span, I've learned a thing or two. That's why in today's video, we're gonna cover those 7 different side hustles that you can do so that you can earn some cash on the side and get some experience in the same time. First up, we have the least exciting or luxurious one, and it probably has the highest amount of competition, but it is safe and it is stable and you get a lot of experience, and that's your part-time job. Now, we all know this route more or less. This is in fact how I made money while I was in welding school, working for local shops around the area, grinding my life away, maybe doing some light fabrication, a lot of sweeping of the floors, and even did some field work around warehouse buildings and inside some grocery stores. One huge perk to this is you really don't need anything but yourself. You just have to show up. A lot of times they'll have tools that you can use or even sometimes give you the tools that you need to do the job. And hopefully while you're there, you'll open your eyes and your ears and you'll learn a thing or two from the people around you. To me, I think the hardest part about this route is trying to find the employer who's willing to hire someone who's learning and able to only work part-time hours while they're in school. You have to have boots on the ground and make that dang near your full-time job is trying to find a part-time job. Now, on the other hand, if you can find a spot to work out of, afford a little bit of gear and equipment to get you started, these next side hustles can earn you some cash. No more working for the man. Now, if you needed a sign that making metal signs could be a way to make some good money, this could be it. I used to make metal signs ranging anywhere from $100 to $1,000, and the process is still pretty much the same. I think our homie Jacob Grant is probably the metal wizard when it comes to homemade metal signs, and really it doesn't take a whole lot of equipment to get going.
It worked for me.
All you really need to make metal signs is a plasma cutter, angle grinder with plenty of flap discs, a portable projector, and maybe a little light-duty welder. You don't even really need the welder if you're just keeping it to 2-dimensional one piece of sheet metal. You might be able to make stuff for homes and people's gates, taking a $40 piece of sheet metal and then turning it to $200 pretty easy. But if you can add a welding machine and you can start putting layers and textures into your signs, that's where you'll start seeing a little bit more of a higher value customer that's willing to spend $1,000 on a piece of sheet metal. And always include the customer on the design aspect of the sign and what they want. Ask a ton of questions, draw a lot of pictures, try to get it approved before you work on anything, buy anything. Nothing sucks more when you get done with one of these signs and the customer says they didn't want it because you cut an oval and they wanted a square. Now, this next one I kind of have a little bit of a love-hate for. Little knickknacks, paddywhacks. Personally, I never really liked the whole horseshoe art bit, you know, making the little cowboys or spacemen. But there's obviously a market for it. You can make boot racks out of horseshoes. You can make a bunch of different home decor that people just go goo-goo over. Now, there are some exceptions to that, like JT Sculptures and our friend Daryl Olson. They do like silverware art, horseshoe and file art, and it's absolutely incredible. And I imagine you can make a good buck and living off of it the way they do it. So you just got to really upscale your artwork. And that's what I think I hate the most about this, is if you're sticking yourself into like cheap horseshoe art, you're only going to get cheap horseshoe clients. It's only until you start spending a lot of time and energy on the projects that you're building and the art that you make where that number goes up. And even still, you could be like me and have a bunch of nice sculptures that you've spent a lot of time and energy and hours on just to have them sitting in your yard. But metal art, you can make a whole lot of money. I got buddies selling sculptures for tens of thousands of dollars. One end or the other. You're either making scrap and getting scrap, or you're making art and getting paid. Next up is probably my most requested ask when it comes to me telling somebody that I'm a welder. And it's usually, can you build me a smoker? And my response is almost always, not cheaper than the one that you can get at the store. What I've come to find out is most people just don't understand how much work actually goes into building a barbecue smoker. Take it from my good friend Chris from Green Money Fab, who builds these things for a living. He builds incredible top-of-the-line smokers for really nice clients. However, you'll notice one thing. He's not using cheap, thin material. And he also has his shop set up streamlined to build these exact smokers over and over again. Just the material cost alone for these barbecue pits usually gets out of the range of the average Joe. Sourcing heavy wall pipe, even if you go the recycled route and try to get some sketchy tanks and try to go that way, it still is expensive and they're heavy. And if you're just one person, man, it's a whole lot of work. So if you want to go the easier and probably a cheaper route, just building an open fire pit that you can cook off is a lot easier to source the material and you can still get a nice dollar. I used to go all over the Houston area looking for these pipe shops, trying to find anywhere from 2 foot wide, 3 foot, 4 foot wide pieces of pipe. Nice heavy wall stuff. They used to always throw out the last little end of it, which was a perfect height for a fire pit. And I would take those. If I asked nice enough and a lot enough, they usually caved in and said, fine, just take it. And I would take that piece of pipe, cut some designs and someone's name in it, and boom, there's $400 right there. And now you've got a fire pit and a cooker so that you can cook your cheeseburgers and tell ghost stories at the same time. I really like this next one. I think it's because it really stretches your fabrication muscles, and the limitation is really only your creativity. We're talking bar stools, lounge chairs, coffee tables, dining room tables, any type of metal furniture that you can make. And you could usually make these things out of different shapes and size tubing and angle iron that you could find at any local metal supply. You'd be surprised the amount of money that you can make taking simple square tubing, adding some fancy angles to it, and a really cool geometric table like these two that I've built in the past. All you really need is a metal chop saw, a welding machine, a grinder, and a couple clamps, and you could probably get to town. Again, it's only limited by your creativity, and the stool or the chair or the table really just needs to sit on the floor and not wobble. That's kind of the only rules. Whereas compared to our next subject, there's a lot more rules to it, even if it is just simple tubing. Now, I've seen it be suggested quite often on social media if you want to earn some side money, and that's to build handrails. Now, we need to tread very lightly when it comes to handrail talk, because even though it's made out of similar material that the furniture is made out of, there are a lot more rules to that stuff, which usually means you could charge a whole lot more. But now we're talking LLCs, we're talking insurances that you need. Handrails are a lot more complicated than just sticking tubing together. Not only the liability aspect, but there are codes to the handrails that you absolutely must follow in order to be even a handrail builder. Certain distances off the walls, certain heights that need to be maintained, where the rails need to be, how far apart pickets need to be. There's so many rules that you need to understand before you just jump into making handrails. However, if you're doing residential stuff like someone's home, a little gate, it's a little bit different because you're just kind of going off the scope of what the homeowner wants. Start there, maybe learn a lot, and then move over into the commercial side of stuff when you decide it's a whole full-time business for you, because you can charge a whole lot more money for a simple handrail just because of the liability of it. Now, we've always talked about building something, but what about fixing things? There's a whole lot of money when it comes to weld repairs. It's a whole lot cheaper to fix this small little spot or this piece of broken off material than it is to buy a new one, usually. I've had a whole lot of people bring me items from around their home, car parts, a lot of car parts, cast aluminum, cast material. You usually don't know anything of what you're working on. And when it comes to those little things, it's kind of hard to justify charging this little old lady $100 some odd to fix a leg on her favorite chair. That you kind of just chalk up to some good karma. You need to step outside of that and try to find those good customers. Just like any of these other tips that I've given you, you've got to pursue letting people know that you're doing the things that you're doing. If you want to do weld repairs that are on excavators or buckets or dump trucks, you got to let people know that you're able to fix things. That's where I've gotten a lot of work, is just word of mouth. But you got to let people know what you're doing. But once word gets out that you're doing these things, you'll end up getting some random phone calls and some pretty cool opportunities. Now, where do you even start? Social media, of course. Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, whatever you kids are doing these days. Build yourself an online portfolio. Attach that to your resume. Have that linked to that business card that you're carrying. That way when people ask, well, what do? You could show them. You can show them. It's free. Anybody can do it. All you have to do is post. You can market yourself on your own, and even if you're consistent enough, little did you know, you can make money on the social media platforms too. Now your side hustle turns into your full-time job, and your social media turns into your side hustle, and now you don't even need whoever that other guy is that you were working for. Now you've learned and made up your own path, and that's what we all should be doing as individuals in this industry, is carving our own path, trying to find our own direction. I'm still trying to find mine. I hope this information helps some of you on your journey as you come up as a welder, artist, business owner, entrepreneur, whatever it may be. See you on the next one.